think one of the things that people don't realize is what a major role professional wrestling played on Andy's life and his career. I mean, he told me at one point that he got his whole persona came from watching wrestling as a kid. He was a big wrestling fan, would watch it all the time. He's from Long Island, New York, and he said his favorite was Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. And he said, I used to watch TV, and he said I could tell, even as a kid, he said I could tell that this guy was intentionally trying to make people hate him and to make people dislike him, but yet he was still popular. People still wanted to pay money to go see him and everything. And he said that just stuck with me all throughout my entire career and performances. And I said, I'm not a comedian. He said, people think I'm a comedian. He said, I'm not a comedian. I hate it when people say that. I've never told a joke in my life. Not one time have I ever told a joke. He said, I'm a performance artist. He said, is the way I like to describe myself. He said, I just like to do things that, and he said, I guess from my wrestling influence, he said, I enjoy getting a negative response from an audience more so than I do a positive response. And a lot of the things that he and Bob Zamuda would think up be things. I mean, they once hired 40 people and went into a zoo and all of a sudden staged this big riot kind of thing where everybody started running saying, the lion escaped, the lion escaped. They hired 40 people to run through and just created panic. They just loved doing crazy off the wall, and Andy loved doing crazy off the wall stuff like that. And that was, from him watching and wanting to be a heel. And he hated doing Taxi. He hated sitcoms. And so then he created, the first bad guy that he created before he became the intergender champion was Tony Clifton. If you remember that, he did that just so he could go out and flat out be a total heel. He put on makeup. He put on this whole outfit where he became a bad Las Vegas lounge singer. He would go out and insult the crowd, insult the audience, just like he'd seen Nature Boy Buddy Rogers do, And then once he didn't really tire of that because he kept doing that right up until his death. But then he got the idea of being the intergender wrestling champion, where he could really actually go in a ring and fulfill his lifelong dream of being the bad guy wrestler.
So funny. Everything he did just hits me right in the funny bones. But I mean, he was so good at what he did, and you're the huge draw of Memphis. You were, just the perfect guy for him to go up against him. And his promo about soap, him calling him Memphis, Tennessee, and the way he would speak, it was just so perfect. Isn't it crazy?
Well, it's so funny. Just a few little weird facts about that. I'm standing here at my house now in St. Nick. I lived about half a mile from where I live right now, over on a street called Walnut Grove Road here in Memphis for 26 years. And Andy would come in town, and he would come to my house, and we sat. Those actual interviews that you see him doing, basically I wrote, and we wrote them because I knew all about what the people would be upset about here in the South. But we'd write the interview, and then I actually filmed the interview in my front room in my house on Walnut Grove Road. We filmed the soap interview. We filmed the toilet paper interview. We filmed I don't know. Anyway, we filmed several different, first physical hygiene interviews, but we only got to show 2 or maybe 3 of them, and then finally the program director and the station manager, Maury Griner, called me up and said, Jerry, please. And I said, yes, sir. What? He said, please stop showing those Andy Kaufman interviews. He said, it's driving our receptionist completely crazy. All week long, she's getting nothing but calls and complaints about Andy Kaufman. And so we actually had several more of those in the can that we didn't even show because of our general manager of the station asking us not to. That's how much animosity Andy created down in Memphis, Tennessee.
That is awesome, and it goes to show you that you guys were in on it together. You guys put it together. so many people before you kind of came out and told everybody you were friends. So many people legitimately thought you two hated each other.
Well, I mean, we got put together by my good friend, and you need to have him on your podcast sometime, or maybe you already have Bill Apter. But Bill Apter was, the magazine writer and photographer and everything out of New York at the time, and Bill was great about. I give Bill Apter credit back in the territory days of helping me get known nationwide through his magazines, Pro Wrestling Illustrated and all that sort of stuff back then. Bill and I became friends, and anything I would send him all our pictures and all our information from our territory, and Bill would make sure that it got covered in his magazines. And he just happened to be at the show. I mean, this is the main thing. And I actually had Vince McMahon tell me on his private plane one day, he said, "Jerry, you can't imagine how jealous I was." And he said, "I've never even told anybody this, but you can't imagine how watching you and Andy Kaufman do all of that stuff when I knew that he had actually come to the WWE first and offered to do that with us, and we turned him down." And that's exactly what happened. He actually went to a show in Long Island, and Bill Apter was there. Andy was friends with Bill Apter because they were both from Long Island. And he went to, I'm almost certain it was Vince McMahon Sr. And what he wanted to do, he said, I would like to wrestle some women out of the audience here at a wrestling show. He said, I've been doing it on TV shows, Saturday Night Live, and I've been doing it in comedy clubs and that sort of stuff. He said, but it's really not being received that well because they're not wrestling fans. He said, I just want to do it in front of actual wrestling fans. And apparently Mr. McMahon told him, Andy, I appreciate the offer. He said, but our fans are so skeptical. He said, I'm just afraid to involve a Hollywood actor with our wrestling because I'm afraid that it'll give the wrong impression and that the fans may think that we're all just actors. And so he turned Andy down, and Bill Apter, heard the conversation, and he told Andy, he said, look, I have a friend, my good friend down in Memphis, Tennessee, Jerry Lawler. He has his own territory, him and Jerry Jarrett. And he said, I'll give you his number and call him. He said, I think they might be really interested in doing something like this. And so that's how we got put together. First, Bill Apter said, Andy Kaufman's going to call you. And I said, what? About what? Andy Kaufman? Are you serious? And he said, yeah, I gave him your number. He told me the whole story. And so sure enough, the next day I get a call from Andy, and that's how it all came about. And in the beginning, that's all Andy wanted to do was come to Memphis and wrestle women and just get the experience of being a bad guy. And so then he had been there about 4 times, and we sold out every time he was there. Then I got the idea, some kind of way I need to kind of see if I can get the personal rub off of this big Hollywood star, right? So then I went to Andy with the idea, said, Andy, you've gone just about as far as you can go with the wrestling women. I said, you need to have a match with a man. And he said, oh, no, I couldn't do that. I don't, I'll get hurt, and I'm done. I just want to do the women thing. I said, trust me, you and I could have a match, Andy, and you won't get hurt, and this thing could blow up really big. And that's how it all got started, just like that.